Hello and welcome to the Ora News broadcast on this Monday afternoon. I'm Daniel Cook, your host for the English edition, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. In today's news, Prime Minister Edi Rama spoke today about the upcoming accreditation of Albania's universities. In the framework of presenting the criteria for the examination of higher education system, the head of the government, Edi Rama, said that the accreditation of universities will start in December. He said, "We will do the accreditation of universities through a national agency that will come from Great Britain, and we will start it in December of this year. This is only a necessary legal process, which the Minister of Education should have carried out on a regular basis, but they have not been doing it in more than 20 years. Once this phase is completed, then we will have the accreditation phase. We will not have a damaging artificial division between the state-run universities and the private ones. Every university will undergo the same process. We will base this process on merit. It will be based on competition and merit for everyone. All of this will be based on the laws that are in power," said the Prime Minister. The Ministry of Education will close 17 private universities and 6 public universities, and will take to court any individual who has violated the laws of higher education. The first report of the higher education experts, who have examined more than 59 institutions of higher education operating within the legal framework, concluded that at least 70.5% of them do not meet the legal criteria. Prime Minister Edi Rama said that this legal test alone has brought to the surface the fact that there are dozens of corrupt higher education institutions in operation. Earlier, Prime Minister Rama said that this government has been aware of the dramatic situation that higher education is going through in Albania. "We have been aware of these dramatic situations in the higher education system. It is a rotten system which has degenerated year after year," said Rama. The Democratic Party has accused Prime Minister Edi Rama of failing to keep the promises of his campaign, specifically where education is concerned. The coordinator of the Democratic Party, Ervin Saliani, made this statement: "Unlike what was promised, the government is not improving the conditions. They are not reducing the fees. They are not accepting more students. They are not increasing the funding for the excellent. They are not increasing the budget for education by 5%, and they are not making a single investment in the educational infrastructure." He continued, "New propaganda, old habits." Here's what the Prime Minister did today with his introduction of higher education, cursing what happened in the past and having no idea about the future. But worst of all, with Edi Rama, 12,000 fewer youth will be accepted this year into public universities due to the government's decision. Unlike what has been promised, the government is not improving the conditions. It is not reducing the fees of study. It is not accepting more students. It is not increasing the budget for education by 5%. It is not increasing the funding for the excellent, and not making any investments in educational infrastructure. After 1 year, the education system is at a crossroad. We see only demagogy and a show of propaganda," said Saliani. The police have locked down the Treasury Department of the Bank of Albania while the investigation continues. The officers of the Judicial Police and the prosecution were in the issue department of the Bank of Albania today to retrieve the documents that assess the amount of money stolen. A few days ago, the Bank of Albania announced the amount of money that was missing. According to the bank, after the completion of a full inventory of all the money that is in the warehouse of the Bank of Albania, it turns out that the missing cash is 713 million lek. The Bank of Albania has submitted the documents to the prosecution, but the prosecution has asked to actually examine the documents that led to the determination of the amount stolen. Meanwhile, the Bank of Albania has guaranteed that all the proper measures were taken, not to violate the normal activities of the institution. The Bank of Albania stressed its readiness to cooperate with the prosecution. At the request of the prosecution of Tirana, the police have taken over the Treasury Department and are keeping it under their protection while investigations continue. The prosecution is reserved in providing information about what is happening inside the issue department. However, some details have been learned. The officers of the judicial police are watching all the offices and workplaces of the 9 people who have been arrested so far. Meanwhile, the sources confirm that the work of all employees who work there will be checked out. It will also be determined whether the internal regulations of the Treasury branch have been followed by the employees. During the day, private police cars are not allowed to take or bring money to the issue department because it is being thoroughly investigated. Sources from the investigation group explain that after the investigations that have been conducted during these last 2 weeks, more arrests are expected, beyond the 9 people who are already behind bars. It is learned that they have started questioning the families of those arrested, and their property holdings are being investigated. The Democratic Party has officially reacted to the scandalous theft that happened at the Bank of Albania. Through their spokeswoman, Laura Vorpsi, the Democratic Party says that they are following the investigation with great attention and that they are seeing with concern how crime is affecting the banking system, once through bullets and once again through theft. Vorpsi said, "We encourage the judicial authorities to conduct a full and comprehensive investigation and to bring the offenders to justice. This is a serious case. After the theft of gold, the robbers strike again. The banking system needs to reform its security procedures and the selection of human resources. We encourage the judicial organs to do their jobs without delay and to resolve this serious event and bring to justice those responsible without exception. The state bank is part of a national security. Games played for political capital are unacceptable for us," reads the statement of the Democratic Party, read by Laura Vorpsi. An administrative investigation has been launched against all the officials of the Central Bank of Albania. The High Inspectorate for the Declaration of Assets reacted to this through a press statement that was made public today. This is their official statement. Given the serious event that occurred at the Bank of Albania, the Inspectorate has ordered the launch of an administrative investigation of all the statements of private interest since 2003, as well as the governor of the Bank of Albania, Mr. Ardian Fulani, the vice governors, the members of the Supervisory Council, and all other directors of the Bank of Albania without exception. The collection of data and information, the conducting of verification activities, and the administrative investigation will be extended to their family members, their spouses and children, and people associated with them. The Inspectorate has ordered the inquiry group to closely cooperate with all the law enforcement institutions, the media, and the civil society, and has asked for the conducting of a thorough investigation within the fastest time frame possible. The results of the administrative investigation will be referred to the prosecution for further examination. The High Inspectorate thanks the media and the citizens for the ongoing cooperation with them and invites any person who has information about any hidden wealth undeclared assets, or unlawful behavior by the above entities, to submit their information to the High Inspectorate as soon as possible. Confidentiality is promised and the principle of the work of the Inspectorate. The Bank of Albania has made some changes to its staff in the wake of the heist, and they have made these changes public. The Bank of Albania has announced the suspension of a large number of employees from the issue department, where the theft of 713 million lek occurred. The measures are being taken in order to maintain the normality of all the activities of the Bank of Albania in the issue department and the Department of Security and Defense. Following several special meetings of its supervisory board, as well as several other actions that they have taken, the bank publicized the suspensions and the new appointments. On the 1st of August, the director of the issue department was dismissed, Mr. Dorian Choloku. Mr. Stefan Sevo was appointed in his place. He has experience in management at the Bank of Albania. The head of the Cash in Action and Cash Stock Department and all the other employees of these two units, as well as the supervisory controller, were dismissed on July 31st, and their job positions are held today by other employees. Also, 2 monitoring operators in the Department of Security and Defense have been replaced. It has been discovered that they have seriously violated the regulations for the preservation and administration of money. A public protest was held outside the Bank of Albania today, in which the people expressed how they think about the theft. The citizens of Tirana have organized a protest today in front of the Bank of Albania building in relation to the famous heist at the bank, which was recently discovered. The political parties have kept quiet, but we will continue our protest until the parliament convenes and discharges the bank governor, Ardian Fulani. This is a civil protest and not a political one, said one of the organizers of this protest. The social networks have been very active in denouncing the heist at the bank. This is what triggered the protest. The protesters demand the resignation of Governor Ardian Fulani, as well as the convening of Parliament in an extraordinary session and the appointment of an inquiry committee which will verify his assets. The protest has been joined by representatives of social society, many citizens, and journalists. The general prosecutor disagrees with a judgment that was passed on 3 arrested men who are going to be sent to Italy. The general prosecutor's office has requested the High Council of Justice and the Ministry of Justice to verify the procedures of the 3 court decisions that were made for Arben Usafaj, Arben Gropa, and Erion Sadikai. The prosecution states that the decisions on these 3 people not only are not founded in the law or the evidence, but they have also affected the reputation of the Albanian institutions with foreign countries, especially those of the EU. The statement says, "The General Prosecution is asking the High Council of Justice and the Ministry of Justice to evaluate the procedure that was followed in the decision of the judges in several different courts in Albania, which in their judgments were not based on evidence and the law. According to the General Prosecution, through these decisions, the court has allowed the violation of law, bringing irreparable consequences. These decisions constitute a violation of the relations of good faith and reciprocity of the Albanian institutions with the foreign countries, especially those of the EU." This was the statement of the General Prosecution, read today by the Director of the Cabinet of the General Attorney, Fiorida Balauri. Arben Gropa, Arben Usafaj, and Arion Sadikai were arrested for the purpose of extradition to Italy, where they are accused of serious criminal offenses. But through these decisions, the prosecution says that they have escaped justice. The General Prosecution asks the High Council of Justice and the Ministry of Justice to evaluate the procedure that was followed for this decision. They feel that the decision was completely unfounded in the law and the evidence. According to the General Prosecution, the court, through these decisions, has allowed the violation of law. The Parliament has overturned an amendment to the amnesty laws, which was proposed by the Democratic Party. The MP of the Democratic Party, Oerd Budukbashi, reacted to the disapproval of the party's amendments in Parliament. The party had proposed an amendment to the law on granting amnesty in the investigation of votes for the mayorships in the South, where, according to the Democratic Party, votes were stolen. In a media statement from the Democratic headquarters, Bulukbashi said that the opposition denounces this scandal. According to the Democrat MP, these are the first signs of installing an oligarchy. According to Bulukbashi, by holding hostage the amendments of the opposition and bringing them down, Rama is trying to seize all the power. He made the following statement. The plenary session of the 31st of July ended the first year of this incriminated majority with shame. It wasn't enough that they tried to capture the political laws of the justice system, create a parallel prosecution through the National Bureau of Investigation, and sign the white checks for the CEZ, stealing 1.1 million lek out of the pockets of every Albanian. The majority then vowed to overturn the opposition amendments to the law on amnesty. The Albanians recall how Rama and Meta, these buyers of the votes of Albanians, with the money of political corruption and organized crime, created an amnesty and stopped the investigation into the vote buying in Korça. The shame that the Albanians saw is a crime under the laws of the Republic of Albania. But Rama and Meta have the votes in Parliament and gave amnesty to the militants, who only applied their orders. The opposition denounces this scandal and introduces an amendment that allowed the prosecution to resume the investigations. But Rama and Meta would not allow this in any way, said the Democratic MP, Oerd Bulukbashi. The co-workers of the 3 men who were killed in the power plant held a protest today, demanding a safer environment. The workers of the power plant of Qaf Mola, where 3 people were killed 4 days ago, have not yet resumed their work. Today, they gathered outside the offices of the Turkish firm that is building the power plant, demanding that those responsible for the deaths of the 3 victims, 2 Albanians and a Turkish worker, be brought to justice. The protesters also demand the improvement of working conditions so that more lives are not put in danger, like the 3 of their colleagues. They also demand a contract of employment from the contractors of their firm. If their demands are not taken into account, they have warned about the escalation of the protests. The state police and the private police monitored the situation the entire time, in front of the Turkish firm where the protests were held. According to a recent study, corruption continues to be present in all the institutions of the Republic of Kosovo. Based on a study carried out by the Speak movement, the institutions in Kosovo, the government, the parliament, the prosecution, the courts, and the police have failed in fighting off corruption. Fidan Kalaya of Speak says that during the presentation of the study, in 15 parliamentary sessions, corruption was discussed only on one occasion. He said, "Until it dissolved in May, the Parliament of Kosovo has held 15 plenary sessions, and it has only discussed corruption on one occasion, namely, the law relating to the declaration of assets." Meanwhile, out of 169 decisions that were made from January to June of this year, only one decision relates to the fight against corruption, declared Kraja. Speak has also published data on the work of the police, the prosecution, and courts over a 6-month period in the framework of the Anti-Corruption Platform of Statistics. The findings of the Speak study indicate that 1,800 cases have remained unsolved by the prosecution and the Court of Kosovo for the first half of this year. As far as courts are concerned, the study says that the courts of Kosovo have dealt with 97 cases for accepting bribery, with 171 suspects. 20 people have been declared guilty, while 77 cases have been suspended. As far as offering bribery is concerned, the courts of Kosovo have dealt with 87 suspects, and 4 of them have been declared guilty, while 44 cases have been suspended. As far as abuse of office is concerned, the courts of Kosovo have tried 619 people, and 93 people have been declared guilty, while 573 cases have been suspended. As far as the Police Department of Kosovo is concerned, the Speak study says that police have dealt with 19 cases of accepting bribery in total, while they have only pressed charges and arrested 6 people. For the offense of offering bribery, the police of Kosovo have dealt with 30 cases. 10 people have been indicted, and only 6 people have been arrested. Meanwhile, for abuse of office, the police of Kosovo have dealt with 236 cases of corruption, and out of these, 106 people have been indicted, and 34 people have been arrested. Fidan Kalaya says that compared to the study carried out last year by the Speak movement, the figures have not changed. He says that the performance of the institutions of justice against corruption has remained almost exactly the same. He stated, "There isn't much difference from the first half of last year in terms of the fight against corruption. The statistics are the same. The number of unresolved cases is the same. The low performance by these institutions remains the same as it was last year. There's no major difference in this context," says Kalaya. According to analysts and different officials, the corruption in Kosovo remains a challenge, and it is considered to be the biggest threat to the prosperity of Kosovo. A prominent Kosovar analyst, Vilhard Shala, told IBNA that in Kosovo there's a lack of political will by the government, which is responsible for preventing and fighting corruption. He said, "Kosovo is lacking the state mechanisms for the fight against corruption. Although there's an anti-corruption legislation and an anti-corruption commission, in practice it has not been supported by the government. Recently, the President's office founded the National Committee for the Fight Against Corruption, but no results have been produced so far in this aspect," says Shala. According to him, the prosecution must be more insistent on prosecuting cases in which there is sufficient proof. The head of the EU delegation to Serbia feels that there is a difficult task for Serbia ahead on its path to EU integration. The Serbian government has demonstrated a clear commitment to furthering their EU integration. The head of the EU delegation to Serbia, Michael Davenport, has said, "The government has also showed commitment to the harmonization of the Serbian laws with the EU's laws in the first 100 days since coming into power," he said. Davenport notes that a serious task now lies ahead of the government to implement the reform laws, to continue working on the normalization of relations with Pristina, to consolidate the economy and the financial system, and to create conditions that are conducive to foreign investments. On the occasion of the first 100 days of the government, which was led by Prime Minister Alexander Vučić, Davenport noted that an entire set of reform laws were passed and fiscal consolidation measures were taken that should yield results in the near future. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all the news for this evening. Thank you for watching. Please join us again tomorrow for more Albanian news in English here at 6 o'clock. Thanks and good night.